Welcome to the Seed Network. I am your host, Bol Mayan, and I'm here with a very interesting fella. We are actually in the UK right now, Camden Town specifically, and my man right here is going to tell you all about it. But welcome. This is going to be an interesting episode. I can't wait. So before we get into it, I'll introduce you to the next guest.
Yeah, FB. We're in Camden Town, like you said. I'm sure you guys heard the sirens. It's kind of they're sort of adjacent to the Camden Town spirit. It's not always for bad reasons, sometimes good. FB. We met as you're staying at the hostel I work at.
Yeah.
And then I do comedy, and then you found out about that. You came to see my show, and then we just linked up, man. It's been a beautiful thing, right?
Well, there you go. So the reason why I wanted to sit down with him is because I wanted to hear his journey from wherever he was before he came to London, and what that was like being here, and what it was like being a brother of color. So I'm going to start off from all the way back to where you were born. Let's start off from there.
I was born in France, in a sort of central south, a place called Clermont-Ferrand. And what was that like? I have no memories of that experience of being born. I can't be lying if I said I remembered it. I imagine there was some crying involved. But I'm told everything was okay. Born at 9:20 p.m. A strange time to be born. Not a lot of people. Most people at midnight during the day. Anyway, yeah, I think growing up there, because I left when I was 7, so I have a few memories. Most of it's great. Just eating. I remember eating a lot.
What were you eating?
I don't know if you can see it.
What was your favorite meal growing up?
Growing up, my mom used to make a great tarte aux pommes. It's like a kind of apple pie. That's the thing that brings me back to my childhood. Anytime I go to France, if I have a slice, that or a pain au raisin.
Yeah.
Which is like a sort of raisin pastry. Pastry with raisins. Very good.
So where are your parents from?
So my parents are from Rwanda. Rwanda, Central East Africa. For those of you who don't know, near Kenya, Burundi, Congo. It's a lot of complexity there. But yeah, my dad went to study in France in 89, and then he studied there for a bit. And then after the situation in Rwanda wasn't great, so he decided to stay which was a good move because. Eventually there was the genocides and almost 1 million people died in 4 months. So before that, my family had already my mom and they'd already moved. My mom had already moved. Then my sister was born. And then
Have you ever been back?
Yeah, 2006, 2005.
How was that?
It was. To be fair, I wasn't looking forward to it.
Why is that?
Because it's because I was we went to, because I was by that point I was already living in Portugal, and so I was we went to on holiday to France. That seems alright. And then I just heard all these stories about the genocide, so I was how safe is it? And then I went there, and this was only 10 years after the genocide. But and it was great. I had a great time. I met my great uncle, Sebastien, and he's he was I just remember him being so old. But I have this thing in Rwanda called banana wine, and I remember not being able to talk to him. We didn't really communicate because he didn't speak any of the language I spoke, and I didn't speak Kinyarwanda, which is the official language. And then there was a party. I think it was a wedding or something. I just remember asking my dad if I could try this banana wine. He said no, and then I sort of just got close to my great uncle. And then he gave me a sip of this banana wine, and it's the first time I got drunk.
Banana wine
caught me, and then because I was with him, it was fine. So yeah, it was good, but it was great. Honestly, it was really interesting. It's so many hills. I drove down. If you go past the city to where, we drove to the countryside, and literally we drove past gorillas. Yeah. It was amazing. It's yeah.
There you go. What's one thing that people don't know about Rwanda other than the genocide that you realized when you got back?
What's one thing people don't know? It's the cleanest city, one of the cleanest cities in the world. Kigali, the main capital. is literally one of the cleanest cities in the world. The cleanest in Africa, but one of the cleanest cities in the world. Once a month, all the citizens of Rwanda do this thing where they just clean up, like they're part of Rwanda, I guess, and it's like a community project that's kind of gone like amazing, because before it was kind of like quite a lot of places in Africa with a lot of plastic bags, a lot of clutter, and the president sort of I guess sort of made this rule that once a month everyone has to clean up, and you can see it now. If you look at pictures, it's like it's just very clean and beautiful and tidy, and it's a lot of development. Still has to develop a lot more. But yeah, there's banana wine. I don't think people knew about this.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about a wine called banana wine.
It's tasty. If you don't like alcohol, it's a good gate. I don't want to be promoting that. But
No, that's interesting, because I didn't know anything about banana wine either. But there you go.
yeah, there's a lot of it in Rwanda.
Why did you go there? Was it because you wanted to go there out of your own, or did you have to go there?
Oh, when I actually went to Rwanda, yeah, well, it was just a family holiday. It was like December 2004, 5 or 6. Yeah. I was about 10 years old, so yeah, definitely didn't go by myself. I wasn't like, bye fam. Yeah. But I was happy I went, and I haven't been since. I will go at some point. There's a lot of there's a longer story that's maybe for another time as to like why it's not happened since. But yeah, there's I think, well, I think also, like, when I think about identity, I think of, like, my own identity. It's like, I'm black, and I was born in France. I grew up in Portugal and England, but I'm originally from Rwanda. So all those cultures are, like, a part of me. So, to me, I don't just subscribe to one, because it's almost like denying a part of my experience, If I just go, like, I'm English, it's just like, oh, what about fucking first 13 years of my life? Or I'm Portuguese, or how about the first 7 and the next 13 years? There's so I always just kind of, I'm like, okay, I try not to deny any part of it. I try also to just also grab that, because maybe a sentiment is that, when people are born somewhere, where they're a minority, is they don't maybe feel less comfortable adhering to that culture. It's your culture just as much as anyone that was born there at the time you were born.
Where did you find it most difficult to grow up? Whether it was France, Portugal, or was it here?
That's a difficult question, man. There was different difficulties. I think in France,
let's say, okay, I'll pin it down. Where did you find it more difficult to grow up, being from where you're from and having your skin color?
Okay, then I think, skin color thing, I think it's different. Like in Portugal, I think people are a lot more, direct with their racism. They're very, they're a lot more direct for sure. Like, actually, an interesting fact, like, growing up, so, like, we are, like, a lot of American culture, like, involved, like, a lot of rap, that was all happening.
So where is this happening? Is it in Portugal? Okay.
Yeah, and, Portuguese people just used to drop N-bombs left and right, but I didn't see anything wrong, because it was just what happened, and I didn't know what the word is. No one spoke English, so you're just, like, rapping the words, you don't know what the words mean, and you don't know that this, may be inappropriate somewhere else. So, like, for instance, I never had, like, a triggered response to, like, the N-word, because I only really felt, like, what it meant when I moved to London, when you learn the history and everything, and so it's interesting,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so that means that it's definitely more direct. There's definitely, like, less, like, the racism that is, and it's less politically correct than London. I think the difficult thing about growing up in London, because I came here when I was 13, it was definitely learning to speak English. No girls appreciated a weird accent. Like, it's like, oh, now it's like, oh, France, Portugal is exotic. Back then, oh boy.
So what about now? Do you reckon you have an English accent, or do you reckon yours is diluted?
I think it's weird. It's a mesh of everything. But I think people, they think I'm from England somewhere, but if you ask them to pay attention to my accent, you'd be like, I actually don't know where. It's like London somewhere, but what area of London? Like, it's kind of generic. But yeah, it's a mesh of everything. Like, especially early on. Oh my gosh, it was a tough few years. Let me tell you that. As a 13-year-old boy,
What was it like growing up here from that age?
I think it was great. I embraced it. I think the first thing was definitely the language barrier, but I was always very outspoken, very I'd always hold court even though I barely spoke any word of English. And also, what else? There was, I'm trying to think of other difficult things. Adapting to the general culture was a tough. I think people in Portugal are a lot more communal.
Okay.
Here where people are more individualistic. I adapted to that, but there's been different difficult times, but it's hard to pinpoint them with a specific country.
What's one thing people that don't live in London that are black don't know about what it's like growing up in London being a black person?
I think if you're in a more low income area and grow up, and I've definitely I went to school in a more low income area for sure. I think from the age of 13, right, 17, 18, if you go to a different area, there's definitely a lot of territorialism. I think a lot of the stabbings and all that, and I even felt during those ages, you go to a different area and you see guys your own age, you definitely feel walk as quickly without inviting someone to follow you. There's definitely that feeling if you're that young. But if you're not, I think generally people are quite accepting. I like it here. So London specifically, yeah. The rest of England's a different story.
Yeah.
But London is just
that's how I felt. I honestly, when I got here, it was so surprising because it's a lot different back home. Yeah. And just the fact that no one really judged me or looked at me twice, or people were just it was normalized to be black here. I know it sounds ridiculous, but back home that's basically what it is like. So to be here, even to be sitting on a tube and to have people from all different cultures sitting right next to me, that was so mind-blowing. I was like, oh my god, I don't get that back home. If I had, because we call these, you got trains and you got tubes, but I'm catching tubes a lot, but we have trains and it's just the same, and it's got booth, which is 4, 2 seats there, 2 seats there. I could have a whole booth to myself, and no matter how packed it is, no one will want to sit next to me, depending on the day, obviously. But majority of the time, I get that a lot until I either open my mouth or, it's just like that. And a lot of people go through that all the time. So to be able to sit down on a tube and no one even thinks twice about sitting next to me, I think that was something that I was like, wow, this is a lot different. So why do you reckon that is? Is it because, why do you reckon that is?
I don't know. That's crazy. I think that only happens to me in London if I'm really drunk and start singing. I'm just, it never happened. But hey, everyone, just make a huge announcement and everyone fucking clears out. No, yeah, that's a good point. Actually, when you said that, I remembered one thing I was really impressed with London, moving from Portugal, was I forgot his name, but there's a brown fella that does the news. And seeing him on the news, I was like, he's in Portugal,
What, on the news as he was an anchor?
He was an anchor.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. I'm gonna kick myself later. But he's been doing it for years, and everyone knows his face. Everyone will know if anyone in London in England watches it. They'll be like, yeah, Channel 4 News dude, and he's brown. But that blew my mind. Man,
even being here and seeing ads where there's people of color blew my mind. I was taking photos of ads. People were like, what do you? Because I was in the tube and I see, an advertising. Massive panel, whatever, with someone that looks like me. I'm like, that's incredible. You barely see that back home. It's getting a bit more now after the Black Lives Matter, and they're trying to be more inclusive, all that. But before that, you will not see that at all. Now they are, but before that, it was very rare.
I think that also was a consequence of the woke movement, BLM, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely that's post 2014, a lot of the ads, a lot of the TV is more diverse.
Yeah.
Before that, there's not that many, I think, shows of with black people and or majority black shows, or even usually it's just one Cocoa Puff in a rice puff like rice pop mix. You know, that was the experience growing up. But I mean, you know, I think England a lot like had made more strides than the rest of Europe in terms of including people, and now has gone even further than I think most other countries in Europe, at least. But yeah, it was crazy. Like, but the newscaster, like, I'm like, yo, I remember being like, yo, that's crazy. Like, I see brown people everywhere here, but like,
how did that make you feel when you saw someone that was on TV and it wasn't judged or looked at weird? How did that make you feel?
It felt like, I don't know, where I was from was backwards a little bit. Yeah. I was just like, oh fuck, like it felt like I was stepped into the future. Like actually, that was genuine. That was actually genuine. Like it felt like that. Like, oh, like, you know, because then you're like, well, why isn't it like that back home? Because
you know what the effect that it had for me is when I saw that here, I was like, that gives me hope that can be possible back home. So I just felt like, because we as a people, us specifically where I'm from, South Sudanese people, we're only 30 years old back home. So that just gave me hope that like it's possible that we can get to a position where it's like that. So it didn't annoy me, it just kind of gave me hope. Did you feel that as well? I know it kind of felt like you were backwards, but did that make you feel kind of like a bit more relaxed and gave you a bit more hope that maybe where you're back home might kind of be the same one day?
I think so. I mean, yeah, and then, you know, Portugal, like, in terms of, like, when I said back home earlier, it was, like, about Portugal. Like, I was like, actually, it wasn't like that in Portugal. Every single person on my TV was Portuguese, unless, you know, like, there was a soap opera where they had a maid with 2 lines, and then she was black, you know, or it was like a gypsy. Like, that's pretty much the breakdown of ethnic minorities in Portugal at that time, anyway. Yeah, so I did feel like, oh yeah, that's going backwards. But like, I think maybe what it did when I came here is like, I never had a chip on my shoulder about being black. Like when I came here, I was like, okay, I know. First of all, it was just too complex. And black in France, black in Portugal, black in London is 3 different things. Yeah. And also black in Rwanda, so there's another thing. Yeah. So I never tried to categorize or to build an identity around that. Because I was like, there's too many things pulling at me. With that said, I think coming here and getting a sense that like you have a lot of like diversity, there's a lot of like people in different like areas. Like it never gave me like a chip, like a black chip on my shoulder to like really be. Actually, I don't know if it's good or bad, but like to really sort of be like pro-black. And so I was just like, oh, I'm pro me. And I'm black and I'm happy about it. But I'm pro me, and then and I'm pro everyone else around me, whether it's white, black, brown, or you know, insert other color. You know, like I'm just pro like people.
When I first met you, we met at a hostel, and you know, it was real cool. You were really humble, and then that same night you had a show on, and you know, you had a stand-up show that night, and that was incredible because I went down to it and it was hilarious. Funny as hell. You guys should definitely check it out. Give him a follow, which I'll give him all the details. It'll be on the channel. But now I want to talk about how you got into comedy, why you got into comedy, and how has that been while you've been here?
Yeah. How did I get into comedy? So, I think I went to uni for like film studies. I studied that. I felt it was a huge waste of time in terms of like the actual course. But and then so I tried a new course as a master's. Then I quit that so basically I tried a bunch of different things. I'm 28 now, and from 18 to 21 I did film. 21 to 22 I did this master's in sociology and marketing that I didn't finish. And then after I got into TV, and it was weird because I quite liked. Everyone was lovely, but I was bored most of like my time there. I didn't feel engaged. But I put in a lot of time. I worked in different projects, like from like development to like production to like documentaries, like quiz shows, like so many different projects. And usually people just stick to one lane so you can progress quicker. But I was like, oh, it's not quite me, let's try something else. Oh, it's not quite me, let's try something else. And then during that time I met a guy called Yassine, and he'd done comedy, and I was like, I've always wanted to go, where'd you do it, blah, blah, blah. And this was 2017, and I then he took me to it. I was in the fight, I was a finalist, so like it was good. It was a good like boost. So I did 3 shows in 2017. Then I continued my TV career, like from runner to junior researcher to researcher, and then after I just had enough of TV because I wasn't getting engaged, and lockdown happened. So I was like, what do I actually want to do? And I was like, oh, I did stand up like, in 2017. This is fucking sick. And like post lockdown, November 2021, I started like fucking doing it like most days of the week, and it's good. It's great. I have a few comedy nights of my own now, like you said. There's one. Well, most of them are Camden based. It's great. It's great. So like I love it. I'm fully committed to that.
Yeah. I love that. Let's talk about Camden. How's Camden been for you? How has it been for your comedy side, and just how's Camden in general?
I love Camden. Camden's the best. Like I think is a beautiful like microcosm of what London is supposed to be. So like when people talk about diversity, different people, different classes, different races, different sexualities, like all of it, you can find it in Camden. Like that's like from posh, like you got Primrose Hill, you got a bunch of posh people, and then you got like right in the high street, you can find the punks, with the sign saying like give us £1 for beer. I love how honest they are. Like, like then you can find like, roadman, like guys trying to sell you stuff. And
what's a roadman for people that don't know what a roadman is?
A man who roams the roads. That's a roadman. And he wants to to provide you with products that isn't necessarily government sanctions. But everyone is it, and everyone's like, kind of like is like mixed, and then you got so many pubs. You got so many pubs. It's great. Okay,
There you go. Well, so the whole project is called the C Network, and I believe that everyone's here for a reason. I know it sounds really corny, but I believe that you are here to plant something. What do you reckon you are here to plant?
What am I here to plant? I don't know. Laughter.
That's good. That's what we need. That's good.
That's cheesy.
I love that.
Joy. I think joy. I don't necessarily believe in happiness, but I believe in joy. Like feeling joyful and spreading that around. And with most things, it's not that deep. You feel joyful.
There you go. Yeah. I love that. That's incredible.
Seeds of joy. I'm going with that. Seeds of joy.
Well, I love that. Well, thank you so much, FP. It was an incredible conversation. And I'm coming to come back next time and have another conversation with you. And thank you so much for showing me around. Thank you so much for the opportunity to even sit down with you. And being at the hostel has been really cool. It's been a lot better knowing that you were at the front, so I could ask you questions without sounding like a complete idiot tourist. But it's been good, and the hospitality's been on point. So thank you so much. Thank you. And that's us. That's a wrap for the C Network. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for coming this far. We are out. Boy Kasha.